didn't choose to have my daughter because I always knew I wanted to have kids. In fact, that was quite the opposite for me. For the longest time, through my teenage years, through my early 20s, I would say I was staunchly opposed to having kids. I just didn't see it for myself. I'd never been a baby person. I had never been that kind of person that sees babies and melts, or children and melts. That just wasn't me, and I assumed maybe the case is that I'm just not supposed to be a mother, right? So what was it that made me change my mind? First, I'll say that it wasn't instantaneous. It was kind of a slow process. It started happening, I would say, in my mid-20s. I remember this one moment when I had a crush on a guy, and he did something or said something, and I remember thinking he would be a good dad. And then from then on, I started noticing that I found that quality in men attractive. If I thought they would be good fathers, it definitely made me think, if I find that quality attractive, then is having children something I should consider? It was not going to be easy, because let me tell you, like, this idea of having kids, I think what scared me the most, or what made me think that's not for me, I would say, is the idea of being pregnant. Being pregnant freaked me out. I did not want to be pregnant. The idea of doing that to my body for 9 months and then giving birth, actually pushing a whole human out of my body, seemed insanely scary to me. Funny to know now that that was actually the easiest part of it. The easiest part of it. In reality, me changing my mind, yes, it started with that. But then I started to be slowly realizing what it is that I want for my life. It wasn't like a surge of hormones. It wasn't baby fever. I'm still, I would say, not a baby person for the majority of babies, although I will say that stories of babies suffering in any way, or children suffering in any way, hit me so much different now than they used to. But I still don't feel this like sense of like I need to hug or kiss this baby that I don't know. I don't feel that way. I'm still mostly a my baby. I do love her. She is the sweetest thing. But that's beside the point. I will get to that in a minute. Again, it wasn't a surge of hormones. It wasn't baby fever. It was thinking, what is it that I want my life to look like? And let me tell you what my life used to look like. I went to college in Boston. I spent summers abroad in Rome. I went to boarding school in Switzerland. I traveled a lot with my family. I had this love of visiting new places. Just loved that. When I lived in New York, which was after college, I loved discovering new places, little bars, little coffee shops. Divine. I love that. I used to love spending mornings in a coffee shop with my computer or with a good book. That was honestly, chef's kiss, my favorite thing to do. Then I lived in LA to do an MFA, Master of Fine Arts, for a year. Did not like living there. Moved back to New York and then Miami. It's the whole thing. But you see, I got to know these big cities. And despite that, I mostly did not change my value system. I grew up in, a pretty old school family, very, very family oriented. I went to a Catholic school. All these things. That never changed within me, but I definitely felt like I explored the world in the sense that I lived in different major cities, including Rome. You might think, what does this have to do with anything? Well, the majority of people that live those lives, I think, at least it's portrayed to us, is that they are a certain kind of way and that they do not want children. And that might be true to an extent. So I had to think about this. To think about what it was that I wanted for my life. And I would say the 2 years that I was in New York before the pandemic is when I was kind of in between, sort of marinating in the idea of what would happen. What could that be like? And then the pandemic happened and I moved back in with my family, my parents, who I hadn't lived with since I was 16 and I went to boarding school. So it had been quite a while. And I realized I enjoyed spending time with my family, with my grandmother. And this is not something I necessarily realized then, but I got reminded of that because the best times of my life have always been with my family. I mean, I had a wonderful childhood. Wonderful. And I am grateful for that. I made a video on TikTok asking people about boomers and why there's so many people in my generation and Gen Z that really dislike boomers. And their replies, essentially, people really dislike boomers. I'm not going to go into that, but it kind of made me realize and make this connection between how many people don't want a family, don't want to have kids, to how many people don't have a good relationship with their parents and their family. So thankfully that was not the case for me. I have a great relationship with my parents and I have a wonderful relationship with my family. And for example, we're planning a trip in a year or so from now. I have to plan it far away from now because my husband's doing medical residency. But we're planning a trip and I want the most amount of people from my family to come. I want my uncles to be there. I want my aunt, my cousins. I want everyone to go because that's like the most fun to me. The more the merrier, the more family the merrier. Whenever I watched American TV shows and I heard people talk about their families, like how much they dreaded going to see their families on Thanksgiving. To me, that was a big culture shock because those were my favorite times. Like every other weekend we would hang out. Every other Sunday we would be on either side of my family for a luncheon with all the cousins, all the uncles so I love that. So when the pandemic happened and I was spending so much time with my family and I was going grocery shopping with my mom and then having dinner or lunches with my grandmother and my parents and my uncle, I started thinking what it is that I want for my life. I had to take stock of what I really wanted for my life 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now. And did I really think I was going to be happy if I didn't continue with the creation of family? I realized no, I actually would be happier with a family. It became very clear to me. And then very shortly after I had that crystal clear realization, when I knew that for a fact, that's when I met my husband. And I think that's what it took. I think that's the click that needed to happen in my head and in my heart for me to, actually allow someone into my life. When I met him, and I could tell this man is a man of integrity. This person is someone that is clearly going to be a good father. He has a lot of integrity. He is a complete gentleman. He shares my values. Immediately, I thought, it's a green flag. It's a go here. So yeah, for me, changing my mind about having kids I just had to take a hard look at what I wanted my life to look like. And it became clear to me that these things that I was enjoying, like the little coffee shops, the little speakeasies, they're going to lose their shine eventually. Just like the things that I used to enjoy doing with my friends when I was in college lost their shine after a couple years. Now, don't get me wrong, I still love going to a good coffee shop, sitting there for hours, but it's not going to be the vein of my existence, okay? Like, that's going to be something that adds flavor to my life here and there, especially once I move back with my family and I have more support so that I have a little bit more free time to do these things and my daughter can spend time with her grandparents. But I realized, like, that is not going to be the thing that I hang on to for long term. And for traveling, I travel with my parents. I travel with my parents to this day. In fact, that trip that I told you about that we're planning it with my parents. I never saw kids as a limitation to travel. Maybe it would look different for a certain amount of time. I was okay with that. And now that I have my daughter, let me tell you, the first few weeks, my God, they were rough. I was exhausted. And I talked about this in a different video I made when I talked about what it was like to become a mom. One of those other personal videos I've made. I was completely drained of energy. But here's the thing, and it's very important, I did not have any help other than my husband, who had 5 weeks off work. And then back off to work he went, and he was working nights. I did not have any other help. And I didn't realize what it was that was waking my daughter up every 20 minutes. Some nights I would only sleep 2 hours total. Some 24-hour periods, I would only sleep 4 hours total. I was totally exhausted. And then we went to see my family in Miami. And oh my gosh, was it night and day. So if you want to have kids, or if you're undecided, let me tell you, having a village, having extended family that is going to help you makes such a massive difference. And this is something that is very important to me moving forward. When it comes to my daughter, now, all of the things, and I said this again in the other video, all of those things that I used to enjoy before, that again, I still probably enjoy, but now they seem like such a distraction. There's still something in my life that was slightly missing, and I couldn't really quite put a finger on it. And now that I have her, when she smiles at me, when she giggles, when I say something silly or make a funny accent, that is all I need. Okay? You could take away all the little coffee shops, all the travel plans, but that is what completely fills me up. And it's a completely different thing. And I now fully understand what parents were talking about. Whereas before, when I used to be on the side of I'm not gonna have children ever, I didn't get it. I saw kids in a completely different way than now that I have my own. And she giggles and she tries to grab my face with her little hands. It's something I cannot truly describe it, but parents understand what I'm talking about. But I do want to take a moment to address the Reddit thread, Regretful Parents. It is a truly, truly depressing place. I think I'm going to give some grace to some of them, and I think a lot of them are truly overwhelmed because they have no help. They have no village whatsoever. So I think that is truly important. I don't think mothers are supposed to take on as much as we do. I think we're supposed to have more help. Truly do. I really think that this atomization of society is very damaging to families with kids. So there's that. That's the part of me being graceful to the parents that are regretful because they feel like they're drowning. I can see that. However, the other side of this is that I feel bad for the children in those arrangements. All I could think about was the kids and how a lot of them must feel totally unwanted. And that is just not something that I would want anyone to grow up with. And I think a lot of these parents are focusing their attention and their thoughts on the things that they cannot do. I cannot do this because of this child. Instead of focusing their attention on the wonderful things that are coming their way because of having this family. I see how you can delve into this cycle of negativity, but I think it's worse when you go into Reddit and type it out and have other parents validate those things. I think it's important to have perspective and get yourself out of that negative headspace. Find a village, find people that can help you if possible, because I think it's crucial. But I honestly feel bad for the children that are growing up feeling unwanted. And to those that say, I love my children, but I wish I never had them, I don't believe you. You're lying in one of those things. You cannot simultaneously love your child but also regret their existence, and vice versa. So I think you need to be honest with yourself, because that is an awful thing to have in your heart. And again, perspective is everything. I don't feel bad for the adults in those situations. I feel bad for the children. Anyways, I just wanted to share my thoughts on why I changed my mind. I realized not everyone's going to have children. I'm not making this video to push you to have them, but I think it's important that people kind of take stock of their lives, think of what they actually want in their life, and move from there. It wasn't a purely emotional decision for me. I did forget to say this. A huge part of me wanting kids was giving that gift to my parents as well. I love that idea of them becoming grandparents, so that definitely was part of the consideration. Now, with that said, this was a little bit more of a personal video. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll see you next time.